Hey, everybody. It's another Sunday morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've got a special service today that has been designed to speak to what's going on in our world and our nation. And so why don't you go ahead and share this feed? We've got some exciting and interesting people that are going to be sharing with us today. We've got the mayor of Stockbridge here, Mayor Anthony Ford. We've got Sergeant Daniel Thunder Burke. We've got Darius Westmoreland, who's going to be speaking to us from the perspective of a young African-American man. Dr. Chris Bowen is here. Lorna Dubois is going to be speaking to us. And so it's going to be a really, really interesting time. So go ahead and hit that share button, if you will. But today we're dedicating this service even to the life and to the memory of George Floyd, who was brutally murdered, and we all watched. And it was as we sat on the end of COVID-19 and in a place of peace and trying to make peace rather with all of the things that happened during COVID-19 and the loss of jobs and loss of income and losing loved ones and many people in a state of grief. And at that moment when the world was in a place of stillness, God allowed something very tragic to happen. We watched this man, George Floyd, be brutally murdered by someone that we would have confidence in, that would not take a life, but preserve a life and save a life. And so it put the world in a state of confusion, in a state of anger, a state of despair, a state of dissension and disillusionment, and even utter disgust. Already in a state of grief, dealing with these losses, we watched a white police officer put his knee on the neck of a man and literally squash the life out of him. And so as a result of it, the world is in an uproar, and people are shattered, asking what kind of evil is this that would take over a person, that would cause them to have so little concern and so little value for someone else's life. And I believe today that the church has a responsibility to say something. And in so many instances, the church has been silent, but I believe it's time for the church to say something. And so that's why we are having this service and dedicating it to what's going on in our world. It's time for the church to take a position. I believe that as the body of Christ, the ecclesia, we have been given a charge and a mandate by God to show the world the love of Christ. And it is the love of Christ that goes directly against this demonic force that has seemed to have lifted its head up, racism. It goes against everything that God stands for, and everything. The Bible talks about how we were created in the image and the likeness of God, and he created all of us out of one man, Adam, and so that he created us all equal, but yet we are challenged with equality even still in the 21st century. But I believe that this is a chaotic moment, a moment in time that God put the whole world on a standstill so that this could come to the forefront. And perhaps now we can get the justice that we need for America and for people all over the world. We say so often, Black lives matter. And yes, Black lives do matter. But to God, all lives matter. And so it is our responsibility to put forth a major effort to stomp out this thing called systematic racism and injustice that we see all throughout our land. And so I believe that as we chunk at it little by little, that we can be the change that we want to see. Dr. Martin Luther King said that the 11 o'clock hour on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in the whole United States. Well, I'd have to agree with that, but there's something that we can do about it. And I'm excited, I'm thrilled, I'm motivated by what I see, even from pastors that don't look like me, that don't have the same skin color as I do, that will stand united with us in this fight against racism. So many pastors that are standing up and speaking. Someone said to me a few weeks ago, what about all these Hillsong pastors that we're supporting and supposed to be in partnership with? Well, they're speaking up. And I'm so excited about that. And it tells me that we're at a point where we can come together and talk about this thing and make a change. So we're going to go right into what's about to happen. And don't you dare move that dial. Don't you dare flip off the page, because there's something exciting that's about to happen, and something that's going to bless your life and speak to you in this season.
He's a good, good Father. He's been great to us. He's been awesome to us. We thank you. You give life. You are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Only. Come on, sing. You give life. You give life. You are love. You bring light to the dark. You give hope. You give hope. Our God restores. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. Hey, sing. It's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs. In our lungs. So we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. In our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour it out to you, Jesus. It's your breath in our lungs. In our lungs. Yeah. So we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. We pour it out to you, Jesus. We pour it out. Hey. And we say this. Sing. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. And we sing. Great are you, Lord. Yeah. Sing. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry his praises. Yeah. These bones will sing. We will sing. Great are you, Lord. Take it up. One last time we say this. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Yeah.
Great are you, Lord. Can you just lift your hand right where you are if you're worshiping with us this morning and just say, great are you, Lord. You give life. You give hope out of the darkness, out of the dark place. And so we just say, great are you, Lord. Go ahead and take a minute and put it in the feed. This is testimony service, if you will. God is so great. Well, I told you I had some special guests that would be here with me today, and I'm going to introduce them, and we're going to go right into what we have for you today. I want you to prepare your hearts and your minds. Again, today, the subject matter for the service, the theme for the service, if you will, is I Can't Breathe, and we've already explained to you why we chose that, and it's a service of reconciliation. Not only are we identifying a problem and a challenge, but at the same time, we're offering a possible solution. So today, with me sharing the stage, I have Mayor Anthony Ford, and God bless you, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And Dr. Chris Bowen, thank you so much for being here. We're going to go right in, and we're going to talk to you about our subject matter today. And I'm going to ask both of you, and perhaps Mayor Ford, you could start us off. What did you feel? How did you feel when you saw what took place in our nation a few days ago? This police officer that literally choked the life out of this man. How did you feel? What did you think?
Appreciate being here today with you and your congregation. And when I saw that, I was very much disturbed because obviously George Floyd was helpless in this case, and the police officer, in a sense, was being dominant, cavalier, and such as he didn't care. And of course, in my 63 years of life, and being an African American and black male, I mean, I've had no real actually police brutality, but have faced racism, of course, in this aspect. But I've yet, of course, have survived all this, as we must do continually as we try to work through this process and make things better all the way around. But it hit hard. It hit hard. It's just the fact that the fact that he was helpless, and the fact that he stood there, 8 minutes and 43 seconds, I believe it is, and that's murder. And we watched it live. And the photo, if we didn't have the video, I would say to you, we probably wouldn't know all this, all the details. But what I understand is that video was taken by a 16-year-old African-American female, is my understanding, and she's great, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have, we were talking about this issue, but we wouldn't have all that evidence. So yeah, I felt pretty bad about that. And obviously there's some things that have to change. We have to definitely change, and it takes all of us working with each other, with the police departments, and education and training in this aspect, and with the individuals elected like myself at the city, state, and federal level to change the laws that make things more proper and right in reference to how police officers deal with the citizens that they're supposed to serve and protect.
Dr. Bowen?
I think anyone who has a heart would realize that it's very disheartening to see something of that magnitude and to watch somebody's life being taken from them. I think anyone who has a heart was in dismay, and anyone who wasn't in dismay simply doesn't have a heart, because it's a human life. And to watch that episode unveil in front of us, I think that it shook the nation, and I think that's exactly what it needed to do. I think America needed that foundation of shaking for realists, to be a realist, and to really understand that America is in trouble.
Absolutely. As I stated in my opening, this subject of racial injustice is something that we in the church have shunned. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is recorded as saying the most segregated time in America is at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. And I didn't really realize that until years ago. I had a chorale, and there was a white gentleman that approached me about joining my chorale, and I was like, yeah, man, come on. He had a beautiful voice, beautiful spirit. He came and he joined the chorale, and we sang in my church on a Sunday morning, and he was the only white face there. And then we went and sang later in his church, and we were the only black faces there. And it was like an aha moment. Wow. It is. It's true that it's the most segregated time in America. And I think we're seeing change. We're seeing us come together some, but I think in order to tackle this giant, it's going to take us coming together a whole lot more. So if there was something that you, Mayor Ford, could say to you're the mayor here in Stockbridge. If there is something that you could say to the citizens here in Stockbridge and the world abroad that could help us pull this thing together, what would that be?
Well, Pastor McFarland, I would say to those citizens that, first of all, when you, especially, well, it could be older or young adults or millennials, when you encounter a police officer and you happen to be stopped, what I think the first thing you need to do is make sure that you help the process and not escalate the situation, because at least that police officer or any other police officers or have weapons. They all carry weapons, a pistol. It could be a bully club. It can be mace, and so. Whatever the issue is, try to, and may be difficult, but try to maintain your composure, try to de-escalate the situation, because if it escalates, then even if you had a weapon, the thing about it, that would help escalate it as well if you're not careful in this aspect. And a lot of times things occur in investigations and they say they did something because someone had a weapon. So you gotta try to be calm and collected if you can in that aspect. And the other thing that needs to happen, once again, as myself as an elected official, I think what we have to do is work with the police departments that serve and protect our community per se, and work with them in reference to how they need to deal with the citizens they supposed to serve and protect. Make sure they have the right amount of training and education with diversity training and how to, in a sense, deal with the public and make sure that they understand that. And then there's also some additional things that probably the citizens need to understand in reference to engaging with the police. And the other thing that needs to happen, once again, as an elected official, is at the city, state, and federal level, we need to make sure that there's certain laws that are put in place to help protect folks across the board, no matter who you are, that are equal and fair across the board, period, in this aspect. And so, such as like if you need a hate crimes bill, or you need something that would help protect the citizens, but also tell the officers not to do certain things because it's against the law in this aspect. So I think those are extremely important, and patience, and just try to de-escalate anything if you can.
Absolutely. I'm going to have Dr. Bowen come, but before he speaks, one of the things that I shared when we opened up is about how there are so many white pastors that are coming forth now and speaking up and saying that we can't tolerate this anymore, and something has to be done. And I'm speaking of major figures as it relates to pastors in the world. And so again, I'm grateful for that. And my friend and brother and pastor, Dr. Chris Bowen, is here, who pastored a black church for 27 years. So my question to you is, I know you had to see and experience some of this. What was that like? How did you deal with it?
Racism is across the board, and it's with the intellectual. It's for those that's not so smart. It's in the black community, the white community. It's there. It's something that I think we need to educate people on. And of course, obviously, I saw it as a white pastor, with which I started with a white congregation, and over a 6-7 year period, we turned all African American and became a mega ministry here in the South Atlanta metro area. And of course, I had people come to me and say, you know what, I can't attend church here because you're white. And it was disheartening because I cannot change my skin color, no more than George Floyd could. He was born a black man. I was born a white man. We cannot change those factors about us. So people that I loved and would have loved to see in my ministry as a great asset, I realized that they were not in the right position to do that because their heart wasn't right yet. They still saw color, whether it was me being white or them being black. And so it's also an issue. And you know, as we go to the gym workout, you hear the remarks all the time at me, the white man, the white man. And I think that we got to educate people that it's disrespectful on any level. What they have done to George Floyd is something now that is opening up discrimination globally across the world. Whether we do that to a Hispanic brother or if we do that to someone that's from China or Japan, whatever that is, I think that we're at a season now that we have to educate people. So obviously, you know, I saw it a number of times and still was able to grow the ministry and build a mega ministry here, and it was very influential and such a blessing in my life. And I'm glad because I realized that people who sat under me pretty much wasn't going to be racist because they sat under me as a white man. And again, my congregation was 98% African American. And so I'm just thankful because that community was amazing to me. And I pray that now that I've retired, that they see that I also is a blessing in that community.
Okay, so tell us what you did. You're retired now. Tell us what that process was like. Who's there? How did it happen?
Well, I retired at 50 because I felt like everything was moving and transitioning so fast in the media. And so I made a ploy 3.5 years ago to start educating churches that there was going to be a huge shifting and huge change. I didn't realize it was going to be through the coronavirus, but that's what's happened. And so I've been the last 3.5 years traveling the world of really educating people on that factor that change is coming, we have to get ready. So when I retired, I felt like I needed to 100% let go of a ministry that I started from ground up and built an $8 million structure, turned that over to a young African American male. And Jeremy was 33 years old and has taken the ministry to a great level and is exceeding and doing fantastic. And we talk at least 2 or 3 times a week and share with each other. He is truly my successor, but I'm not dominion over him saying, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. When I left, I totally turned everything over to him, and it was the right thing. This Sunday, he's having church from the rooftop. Last Sunday, he had a mega platform built. He is just doing a phenomenal job. And so, and I didn't look at him because he was African American. He was the man for the job. Honestly, I don't care what nationality he was. It was simply who was the right person for the job, and it happened to be Pastor Jeremy.
Wow, that's powerful. And I think it speaks to where we need to be in the 21st century. You said you did not look at him and make that decision based on the color of his skin, but it was a spiritual thing, and you knew that he was the man for the job, and so you released the ministry over to him. I think it's profound. What is it that Black America is looking for? And to answer that question, I would have to say just to be looked upon as an equal, just to be looked upon as someone that has value, and that when we're embraced or what have you, that there's respect and honor there. That's what Black America is looking for. Well, we're going to go into our next segment, but just before we do, here's something just for you.
The pain is immeasurable, indescribable. I grasp for the words to articulate it, but they are elusive and intangible. I reach for them, but come back empty-handed. Where are they? My soul sings a song of heartbreak and mourning. It's a song that I've never learned, but that my soul instinctively knows. It's a song with the aroma of freedom from a land of a people where I have never gone. It's a song from a people whose souls were free. It's a song of deliverance, sung just for me. It's a song of deliverance echoed for me, for they dance and they sing and they rejoice jubilantly. They sing a song to a people from across the sea. I hear the drums, the beating of the drums, the feeling of the drums, the heartbeat of the drums. They too sing a song. They sing a melody. The drums, however, now moan a frightful sound. Terror is quickly approaching with death in its sound. Their song has been obliterated by destruction and hate, and my soul sings a song of mourning and pain. God, help my heart that I don't elect and welcome the invitation from the waves, that I have become the liquid cemetery for my mother and my father and my sister and brother who elected the song of freedom, calling and welcome from the bottom of the sea, rather than the brutality of castration and separation and failed humanity awaiting on land. I can't breathe, although I'm trying to, although I want to. Father, remove the knee that restricts my air, my life, my song. May I sing the song of justice, of freedom, of joy, and of life. Father, prepare us a song of deliverance.
Wow, what a powerful poem by my sister Kelly Wood. It really, really blessed me and inspired me, and I pray that it did the same thing for you. Well, my brother and friend is here, Sergeant Daniel Funderburk. Man, it's good to have you here.
It is good to be here. Excellent to be here.
Listen, I've got some questions for you, and I know that our viewers have some questions for you as well. And I'd like for you to speak to us from the perspective and the position of being a law enforcement officer.
Yes, sir.
Because I think you have insight that can help us understand some things that we may not understand from the perspective of law enforcement. So my first question to you is, how did you feel when you saw one of your fellow officers in the position doing what he did to George Floyd?
That question can be answered simply by, I saw it not from a police officer's perspective, but I saw it from a human perspective. Mm-hmm. Many times people feel like this uniform is welded to our bodies, but the beauty of this profession is that at its root, these are men and women in these uniforms, and we should police from our hearts. And I saw this as a human taking another human's life. And I was embarrassed, humanistically, but I was embarrassed even more professionally that he did such a thing.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's an oath that you all have to take and make and stand by and live by, and that I would think would be directly against that oath.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I guess that's what was my personal feeling to the fallout is that we had the perfect opportunity where everybody was on one accord. Oftentimes things have happened and there have been police engagements and they've been up for discussion. Some people feel that they're right, some officers feel they're wrong, some officers feel they're right. This was a time where everybody was in agreement. I don't know one officer, I don't know one public official, I don't know one chief, I don't know one sergeant that felt that what he did was right, that felt that what he did was anywhere in any type of training that we have.
So in light of what you just said to me, you said something I think that is very key. You said a couple of things actually that grabbed me, that these uniforms are not connected to you guys, that,
Yes.
that there's a human underneath there. Do you think that there are times that someone could put on that uniform and think that they become someone of power that they're really not, and abuse that power?
Absolutely, absolutely. Abuse of power is it happens. It happens. Maybe but it's from the individual. Maybe you feel like because of this badge that I have on, I'm superhuman. But one thing that I'm grateful for is that I'm now in a position as a sergeant, as a leader, where I can teach young officers coming in that it's not the front shiny part of your badge that's important, but I've come up with a concept. I call it the back of the badge. It's the back part of our badge where the pin is, where it's not polished, where it's holds this badge to your chest, right above your heart. And that's what connects you to policing, is your heart. That connection right there is the most important thing on this entire uniform. That's what makes you a human, and that's what allow policing to be what it's supposed to be, an honorable profession, if we don't forget our hearts, if we don't forget the back of our badge.
Okay, and that was where my next question was going, because I know you, I know your heart, and I know your heart for people. Do you think that that there's something that we can do? Maybe the church, maybe the community, and maybe Mayor Ford, I'll ask you this question first. Do you think that there is something community-wise, something that could be put in place to speak to the heart of people, to help people direct their thoughts and their heart, so that we all can be a more compassionate people? Because I think the heart of racism is a heart issue. You know, I don't think there's any legislation or law that can be passed that will make people love each other and make people come together. It's a heart issue. What would you say to that for us, the citizens here in Stockbridge? Something that could happen, some kind of programming.
Well, Pastor Westmoreland, what had occurred several years ago, you may realize this. I'm not originally from Georgia or the Atlanta metro area. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. So the incident occurred with Michael Brown several years ago, even though I'm living here, hit me hard simply because I grew up not but maybe 4 miles from where that incident occurred. And so at that time, soon after that time, I started a little program for a couple of years. We met roughly every other month, Coffee with a Cop, where I had the Henry County police officers meet citizens at on Saturday mornings for a little coffee and breakfast, and to have some discussions. It went well, did it for a couple of years. So on that note, what I think I should take up higher now in a different position in a sense, is to establish something similar to that, but have a community meet with the police officers that serve and protect our community, and have dialogue. Not necessarily over breakfast, maybe do something a little different than I did a couple of years or so ago, but we have that dialogue, or some type of citizen review board in this case, or some type of, you have to understand, you got to show the heart, you got to be able to communicate. And then, as I mentioned earlier before, in a sense, we got to have some dialogue in reference to what the police officers are going through, type of diversity, type of training, education they're going through, but also simultaneously, the citizens have to go through some type of training aspect, a thought process. When you engage that police officer, there's certain things you need to do. You don't need to escalate this. You need to calm down, relax, and there's certain things you need to do to comply. Because once again, the police officer comes loaded with weaponry and other types of equipment, and the chances are you don't have that. And even if you do have that, the thing of it is you need to make sure you don't reach for it, because that's going to escalate the situation. And typically when that happens, someone gets hurt or someone dies. And a lot of times it's the person that is being stopped or being held on trying to do something. So you got to think smart. Hey, I want to survive this, so certain things I need to do. So we have to educate the citizenry as well, no matter what the age and no matter what ethnicity you are, educate that, and then also have dialogue with the police officers, the police department, and try to come together. You have to do that. It's a must.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And I'd like for your answer to that question to be twofold, because he spoke of training the citizens and so forth, in terms of the training of the officers. You know, is there any hard issues discussed, and are you taught that people are human beings and they matter and their lives matter. And so, what is the procedure with that? How are you taught?
Well, we are taught. We learn a lot of community policing. We learn a lot of de-escalation techniques.
Okay.
We do a great deal of that, a great deal of it. And when it comes to training, it's almost a matter of the root and the fruit. You can teach an apple tree how to be an orange tree all day. You can plant him in an orchard plant this orange tree in an orchard of apple trees. That orange tree has the root of an orange. And its chances of changing that root are going to be very slim to none. So if you get, pardon the pun, a bad apple, that bad apple is going to, it's a bad apple. No matter what the profession is that person took, whether that person took the profession of a pastor or a politician or a police officer, they're a bad apple. And you're a bad police officer, you're a bad politician, you're a bad pastor.
You gonna call me a bad pastor, man?
No, not at all. But and just to touch back on Mayor, what you said about training is one thing I'd like to do is help people to start training their mindset on and even in the conversation. While I understand the heart of where you were coming from, one thing you said we want to teach people how to survive, and I've heard that term that used more often than not, surviving the police encounter. When you have a police encounter and you say surviving, you go into it on a defensive. You don't have to survive a police encounter. You have an expectation that there's going to be an encounter when you survive. Most people at this church, you guys had the benefit of me being here. You see me, and it's just Daniel. So maybe the encounter with police isn't so abrupt, isn't so abrasive as it was when I was growing up. I never dealt with a police officer this close. I didn't see the person of a police officer, but just recognizing that police officer is a man. It's just a guy at work, whether it's a public works guy or a police officer, and you don't have to survive. We can both survive because everybody is on edge. Mm-hmm. So let's get off edge and understand that we're people dealing with people.
Absolutely. Dr. Chris is going to come back and he's going to speak to this. You said something that is very powerful and very key, and Darius and I are going to talk about it in a later segment as well. Everybody is on edge right now. And it's not just because of that situation, but we've come out of COVID-19 and people have lost loved ones and so many things. And then there's this. Right. And so people are on edge. You shared with me some things about what it's like within the confines of your job now since all of this has happened. Can you share a little bit of that with our audience? And I know you can't share a lot of it. But I think people need to understand that there's a level of tension with you all as well. You, in the riot that took place here in the city, one of your buddies was injured.
Imagine in your family if there was discord even outside. If something happened outside of your family, it tends to creep inside the home. Mm-hmm. And we know the enemy is tricky, and he'll use anything to get inside and break down that fiber and that core. And fibers have been broken, they've been tested, and they've been stretched. The gentleman that got injured is not just another police officer to me, but a good friend of mine. And so there's tension there, there's stress. There's a lot of things that are going on in the department right now that have been in the news. That makes it a tough situation for everybody. And when you're a new officer, I'll take it just from a new officer perspective, you come in and say, well, geez, what am I to do? Is this what I got into? And is this why I got into it? So without going too deep into the inner workings of what's going on right now, but it is a tough time in the Atlanta Police Department.
As we close this section out, I'd like for you to look in that camera You are the voice, you are the face right now of every police officer in the city and the outskirts and the suburbs. What is it that you would want to say to people that are afraid, people that are anticipating if the police stop me, something bad is going to happen, people that saw what just happened to George Floyd, from your heart, and you spoke of the heart, what would you want to say to these people?
From the heart, the situation with George Floyd, nobody agrees with that. That was murder. Nobody agrees with it. As far as Sergeant Funderburk is concerned, when you encounter a police officer, don't do what we're fighting for. Don't put us all in that box. That box, none of us belong in. But don't put us all in the same box. Give us an opportunity to let you see who we are. Give us an opportunity to do our jobs, and to do our jobs with dignity, with respect, and with integrity. Give us an opportunity to do so. Don't come with the fight, because most of us, we really don't want to fight. I'd rather do what I have to do and then be done with it. And 8 out of 10 times, we're not coming up for some bad reason. We're coming because someone called, and we're coming to help. There's a man or there's a woman behind that badge, and we want to be a help. We want to be what you need us to be and what you want us to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the wake of all that's going on, it renders you at times speechless. I can remember watching interviews about what happened, and just listening to the hearts and how people have been traumatized, and it can render you literally speechless. But our music ministry is coming with something now that says, I won't be silent. That if there's going to be change, then we as political leaders, we as policemen, we as pastors, we as the church have to open our mouth, and we have to say something. And we have to say it with grace, and we have to say it with love. I won't be silent.
Here comes a wave meant to wash me away, a tide that is taking me under, swallowing sand left with nothing to say, my voice drowned out in the thunder. But I won't cry, and I won't start to crumble whenever they try to shut me or cut me down. I won't be silenced, you can't keep me quiet, won't tremble when you try it. All I know is I won't go speechless, 'cause I'll breathe when they try to suffocate me. Don't you underestimate me, 'cause I know that I won't go speechless. Written in stone, every rule, every word, centuries old and unbending. Stay in your place, better seen and not heard. But now that story's ending, 'cause I cannot start to crumble. So come on and try to shut me and cut me down. I won't be silenced, you can't keep me quiet, won't tremble when you try it. All I know is I won't go speechless, speechless.
I won't be silent. I pray that something has been said, something has been saying that will motivate you to not be silent. Today, again, is about reconciliation. And the only way reconciliation can take place is there has to be conversation. And unfortunately, it's difficult conversation, but it's necessary conversation in order to bring about change. So now we're going to talk a little bit about something that is very, very prevalent in our society. And we have added a couple of special people to the stage with us. Dr. Chris Bowen is still here. Thank you, Dr. Bowen. And the handsome gentleman next to him just happens to be my only son. Darius, we're glad to have you here. And then we have Sister Lorna Dubois, who is a very, very intricate part of the ministry here at Restoration. And so, Darius, I think I want you to start us out, because there's something that I'd like for us to glean from this about racial profiling and the problem that it is and can be, and the emotions that it causes within a young African American man. Tell me, if you will, Darius, what you felt when you saw what happened to our brother George Floyd.
I think my sentiments were pretty much the same as everybody else's. Just disbelief, disgust, rage, having the thought of, could I be the next person that everybody is watching worldwide be murdered publicly? A friend of mine said something and it really hit home for me. He said, I don't even really have to know you, but he said, if you're a black man just like me and you just had a child that's not even 1 year old yet, you have a fear that you could walk out that door and something happened to you and you die or you're killed because of the color of your skin, and your daughter or your son has no memory of who you are. And for me, with my daughter just being born only 3 months in now, that hit home. Like, I literally live in a world where I could walk out the door and just because of the color of my skin, something could happen to me. And she not even remember who I was, not even remember that, how much I loved her or this, that, and the third. And it really just hit hard and just brought the whole thing to a different point of realism.
What would you say to a young African American man or boy, to give them light or to give them hope? And the reason I asked that is I was watching an interview with Pastor Stephen Furtick, and he talked about his son, and he talked about how his son was the one that told him what was happening, and he went in and he looked at it, and the son left the room and he went into his son's room, and he was sitting on the bed, and he said, what's wrong? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And his son said to him, I just feel hopeless. And his comment behind that was, if my son, who is white, feels hopeless behind this situation and this situation that happens continuously over and over again, then what in the world could a young African American boy or man be feeling? So what would you say?
For me, it kind of goes back to what Sergeant Funderburk said earlier in the broadcast. Just the feeling that we get. Like, I know if I get stopped, my heart drops. And there's like...
That's probably because you're speeding.
More than likely. But, my heart stops because it's just like the world we live in now. You don't know if it's a situation that you will survive. But again, that's the mentality that we now have because of what's going on. So I think it's definitely a mentality, shift that we have to have as far as what we can do on our part, not to dismiss the fact that there is the possibility, not to dismiss the fact that, there is a tension right now. But I truly believe that, admitting things and opening up and talking about it, shining a light on it is the way to deal with it. So, and just, relaxing and just doing what you can do, because all you can do is what you can do, and what you can do on your end is, the things we're taught. Be respectful, relax, things of that nature. And the reason why I say this is because the whole situation has me in a perplexed place because I've experienced it on both sides. When I was just in LJ on a family trip, I was in the car driving somewhere with my wife, and for those that may not know, LJ is a predominantly white area. And I was racially profiled. We were racially profiled by a man in his truck. And he was suspicious and he started following us. And I took some turns. I went at least a mile past where we were actually going to lose him, and he just continued to follow us. And so, naturally in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what is this man gonna do? We have a child at home. We got to get back to our baby. I'm currently naked. There's nothing, no weapon, no nothing in the car. If he's up to no good, I guarantee he has. It's just so many things going through my mind in that moment, and it just had me in a very uncomfortable place. And in my mind, also going, dude, you have no reason to worry about me. I'm just here on vacation. Like, why are you worried about me? And so it just naturally puts that tension and that feeling there. But on the flip side, it was another time that I was in LJ, same area, where I was speeding, and I got pulled over, and it was a Caucasian cop, and he pulled me over, and naturally in my mind thinking, and this is just what we do. In the area that I was in,
Oh, he gonna get me.
it's over with. In my mind, I'm like, it's over
Yeah.
with. Like, just whatever. But it ended up being an incredibly pleasant experience. And I was in a very bad position because not only was I speeding, not only was I a black man in that area where I could have been profiled, my wallet was in my suitcase. So I'm now having to, I can't give him what he's asking for. I'm having to explain to him that I have to go to the trunk, which that's not a place that a cop really wants somebody to go. So, and he is literally just like, okay, cool. You do what you got to do. Where y'all coming from, where you headed, anniversary trip, how long you been married. He literally went down the line and conducted himself in a manner that cops should conduct themselves. So I've seen it on both sides. So that's where my hope comes from, the fact that I've seen it on both sides, so I've been able to see that it's not everybody. It's just those bad apples that he talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Dr. Chris, I'd like for you to speak to that. We've had conversation about that, different ethnic groups and social groups. There's good and bad in everybody. And pastoring for 27 years, I know you saw that. Mm-hmm. Speak to that.
Yeah, I think that it's across the board. It's so unfortunate, I think, right now, of course, with the police force, that you do have a few bad apples. But the majority of them are such good people. And it's unfortunate that we really capitalize on those that are doing so much bad. I think it's sad that somebody like Darius, a young African American, has to be afraid to be pulled over. But obviously there is that tension there because of what we're seeing in the news media. And so I think it's just so unfortunate that you do have that bad. We were watching the news the other day, and those arrested recently in the Atlanta police force, and the demographics there, it wasn't all one or the other, it's a mix. So it's very unfortunate, again, because I think that most are such good police officers, but those few that we have that are bad, it just makes all seem bad and hopeless. And it's sad that we have a generation that's raising up that feels hopeless, because it shouldn't be that way.
Wow, absolutely, absolutely. With us today also, we have Lorna Dubois. And Lorna has a very unique situation, and we were in conversation, and I thought it was something that we probably should take a look at. It's something that I think as Black America, or perhaps even white America, we don't think about her situation and what it could be like for people like her in a blended family, being a white mother and having African American children. So can you speak to that for us?
It's hard to say. As a white mother with black children, my fears are the same as a black mother. As a parent of black children, I have 2 sons and a daughter. When my boys go out, they're 30 and 29, I still fear. When the tension happened last week with George Floyd, I started to fear. I would call my son in Delaware and see what his day was. He was going out on his bike, his motorbike, and my first thing, are they protesting? Yes. Do you have to go? Yes, Mom. quit fearing. I said, it's not fear, it's just being a mom. Knowing that he is a black man raised by a mother that taught him to speak what he feels. It's hard to tell him now when you are pulled or you're in a situation, you have to dummy down just to make sure that you get home to your son that you need to raise. So I think as a mother, I am a mother with a black son, and I feel the same as a black mother. When that child goes out the door, will I see my son come back in the door?
And so I hear you saying that you are having some of the same conversations with your sons that we're having. Can you share some of that with us? Give us some insight as to what some of that conversation has been like.
Yes, I can go all the way back to him being in the 2nd grade and living in apartments and in being in an area that the apartments were there to balance out the community, and the school that they went to was predominantly white. The black children were there to balance out the government funding and stuff, and having a teacher call me for an appointment to discuss my son, which I went, introduced myself. I'm here, I have an appointment. No, I don't, you don't have an appointment. Yes, I have an appointment with you today at 2:30. No, I have an appointment with Joseph Dubois' mother. And I said, I am Joseph Dubois' mother.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes. And I get very, defensive because I protect my children. And we had our conversation, but the conversation went south once she realized I was a white woman with a black child. And what it was my son was being, we're going to use the word profiling, because he came from the apartments, he was a black child. He was black, he was dumb. He was misbehaving, he wasn't the material that they wanted in their school. Come to find out, the black children were sat in the back of the class. They weren't educated like the ones in the front, which were of Caucasian color. Now he's in his 30s, he's in the military. And he is a very intelligent man. He is a man that has self-educated. He's gone to college. Now his challenge is with the white community. They don't want a black man with intelligence to speak to them on how to improve things on his job. So he deals with racism within our military now.
Wow, wow, that's powerful. And again, you know, it's a tough subject. It's difficult to hear at times, but we need to talk about it. And I think on the wake of what has happened in our nation, it has been thrust to the forefront, and we have an opportunity to do something about it. We have an opportunity to sit in settings like this and discuss it and bring about change. Racism is something that we're not born with. It's a learned behavior. And you know, all of us, I think, in our natural environments that we grew up in, or what have you, there was something that we heard about it, or something that spoke to us to shape who we are and the way we may feel about it, whether good or bad. But this is an opportunity that we have to make a difference and really bring about a change. One more question for you: Are there times when your children are being faced with racial issues, and is it difficult for them to come to you, your mom, but you're white? Is it difficult for them to come to you? Is it difficult for them to receive what you have to say? Because that's the face that just gave that to me. Is that a situation, or?
It's interesting you should ask that. My 2 oldest, we have a very great communication. They can come to me with anything. They can vent any way they want to vent. They can, you know, my oldest son gets on his siblings about cussing in front of me, but when he's upset about things of racism, he goes in it. And I allow it because I know he needs to get it off. Now, my youngest, I know he loves me. I am his mother, but at the same time, I am that face that holds him down. I am that face that gives him arenas that he's not allowed to go in. I am that face that though you are educated and you're smart, you can't go where you want to go. So he would never admit it, but he does have that problem internally, constantly at war with me because I am a symbol of what holds him back.
Wow, wow. Dr. B, if you could speak to that um, in your teaching and training and studies, um, how how do we navigate our way through this black-white issue or black-white Hispanic issue? How do we navigate through this? What are some things that you could say to us in your professional opinion?
Yeah, there's again, it all goes back to education, I think. And as you said earlier, no one is born to be racist. No one. That's a choice that is made by teaching that comes from family or relatives or groups, whatever that may be. And so there's things that always happen. The first thing that happens whenever these kind of things happens is, number one, we're in denial. We isolate because of the denial. We go from there to anger is the second phase that people go through. After they go through the anger, then they come to the bargaining place of what can I do different? What did I do wrong? And so they go through a bargaining stage. Then they turn all of that into another whole phase that they just don't understand in their life. So we have to make sure we go through each of these phases of their life and say, this is what's happening. That next one is when people become very depressed and they get in this depressed state and say, what's the use? I just give up. Right now is not a time for any of us to give up. And then the last one is when we actually we accept the behavior, whatever that may be. So we have to make sure that we're getting all these lined up, and those don't happen in any sequential order. People go through those. Sometimes they start off angry, and then they move to acceptance. Then they may go through depression. But these are the 5 basic areas that people go through. And so in my counseling practice, that's the 5 areas that we realize that when someone's wounded or hurt, especially in the racism they're going through now, they're going to go through these stages. They're going to go through all of those. And we have to make sure we understand that as they go through those to become healthy, they have to go through and transition those and find out what we need to do to become healthy. We can't just act like it's not happening. It's happening. It's real. It needs to be dealt with. It needs to be talked about.
So then would you even say that a part of all of this that we feel in the atmosphere, people are like, I'm tired, I'm drained, I'm depressed, people are grieving. And so within the construct of that, if I'm hearing you, you got people in different places. Right. And we're all trying to come together. And so it just makes this place of friction that we have to work through in order to find peace.
Yeah. I think the only one that we're not coming to yet is that 5th one. We're not coming to the acceptance, because I don't think America's ready to accept things and go back the way we were. We're coming out of a pandemic, and people have decided, I'm ready to get back. But this is an area we're not going back on. And we shouldn't go back on. It's time that we move forward, that we kill this thing. Now it's brought to the forefront. So you do have people that, number one, going through denial right now. Well, I don't see an issue. They're blind because there is an issue. You have people that are angry. That's why you're seeing windows busted out at Macy's downtown. You're seeing people that are bargaining. What can we do to make this better? And you're seeing people that are depressed of just going in and putting the cover over their head. But nobody is going through the acceptance yet. We're not there, and we shouldn't just accept things. Well, it's just life. It's where it's going to be. It's always going to be. I don't think that has to happen. And so I think that you have 4 different categories of people that are all having all these emotions, but the 5th one hasn't taken place in anybody yet, I don't think, and that's the acceptance, because the white community is not willing, and you will notice in the protests that about 40% of the protests is white people. And so they have to understand that it's not just the black people that want change. The white people do as well. It's not just the black people busting the windows out. Right. Attacking the CNN Center. The Caucasian people are there as well, fighting for the rights of equality. I think that the next generation is bringing to us that we want equal rights, and we should have that.
Absolutely. The worship team is coming with a song that says, God, I need you to breathe. As George Floyd was losing his life. It is recorded, and it's everywhere, all over social media and the news, him saying, "I can't breathe." And so making the theme of this talk, "I Can't Breathe," was very, very intentional, because what I see happening in our world is we can't breathe because of all of the tension, because of all of the things that are happening in the world. It's sucking the life out of us. It's sucking the air out of us. And can I tell you that there is no law, there's no legislation, no bill that can be passed that will clear that out and make it right. It's only the breath of God. And as cruel and heartless as racism is, the love of God can take it and banish it out of your heart if you allow him. And so we're closing out with this song by just saying, "God, I need you to breathe." We don't have all the answers, and we don't have all of the solutions, and I think we're just tipping the iceberg. It's amazing to me that our forefathers, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and so many others, were fighting the same battle that we're fighting today. And I think we have made some leeway in it, but we've got a long ways to go. And so our plea today, as we are trying to talk about possible solutions for reconciliation, is, God, we need you more than anything. We need you to breathe. You are the air we breathe.
I raise this voice will praise. I live to worship you. Help me sing. I raise this voice. It will praise. I live to worship you. Jesus, here's my heart. Jesus, here's my heart. And my soul. Here's my soul. Take control. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. You are the air I breathe. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. You are the air I breathe. God, in this time of unrest in the world, we need you to breathe like never before. Breathe on us, oh God. You heal. You say, oh God, without your grace, I know I would be lost. I wouldn't be here today. One grave, one life you gave, and you did that. You did it, God. You did it all for me. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So I give you my heart, and I give you my soul. All I want you to do is take control. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. You are the air I breathe. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe, God. I need you to breathe. You are the air I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. I need you no way out. Thank you, God. There's no way out. No way I can breathe without you. There's no way I can. Can you help me say? There's no way out. No way. No way I can breathe without you. We can't do it. There's no way out. We can't breathe. We can't breathe without you, God. There's no way out. You are. No way I can breathe. You are a lifeline. There's no way out. We can't breathe without you. There's no way out. No way. No way I can breathe without you. No way I can breathe. No way out. I need you. I need you to breathe. No way out. Need you to breathe. I can breathe. I need you to breathe. There's no way out. I need you to breathe. There's no way out. No way I can breathe. I need you to breathe. There's no way out. Breathe on me. Breathe on us. Breathe on the world. There's no way out. I can't do without you. We can't do it. We can't do it. We can't do it. There's no way out. No way. No way I can breathe without you. No way. There's no way out. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. You are the air I breathe. Ooh, hallelujah. Thank you, God.
And so I guess what we're trying to say to you today that are watching, it's time for reconciliation. It's time for change. And in order for that to happen, we've got to start making some tough decisions and asking some tough questions. And now is the time. Now is the time to plot, to plan, to mobilize, and to strategize what our next move will be. Now is the time. It's time to exercise your political power by going to local elections. We just had a primary, and vote out prosecutors that you know don't have the best interest of the people at heart. Now is the time. It's time to hold our mayoral officers, chiefs, and deputy chiefs accountable to what's going on in our communities. Now is the time. It's time for us to stand up and be heard. And how are we going to do that? Well, you can start by filling out that census form so that our cities and our counties can be counted when certain funds and programs are being allocated. Now is the time. You matter. We say Black Lives Matter and all lives matter. You matter if you're counted. If you don't fill out your census, then you're not counted. If you don't vote, then you're not counted. It is not time for us to burn down our homes and burn down our cities and leave our cities and homes in ruin. But it's time for us to bind together in the spirit of love and in the spirit of unity to make a better world. And so again, I say to you, thank you for joining us today, and I pray that you have been inspired in some way to do something that can help us reconcile what's happening in our world. Thank you to all of our friends that join us every single week. We're sitting here and we're watching you, and we're talking to you in the feed. Thank you for joining us another Sunday. Thank you to all the members of Restoration that are faithful in your tithe and your giving. Thank you for understanding that it takes money to fund ministry, and you're doing kingdom work in a special way. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Lady D and I say thank you for standing with us, for partnering with us in ministry. And many of you, our friends that are giving as well, we want to say thank you to you. We understand that you don't have to do that, but you do. And so we're grateful for you partnering with us in ministry and considering Restoration good ground. And perhaps some of you are considering sowing into the ministry even today. Our cash app is $Restore My house. I give, and I'm speaking prophetically over my house that there's a restoration coming. And if you'd like to give by way of text, it's 404-800-6040, and you can give and text in your seed into the ministry. Well, until the next time that we are together, which will be this coming Wednesday at 12:30, I say unto you, may God's richest blessings forever be yours.
Avenue.